You are invited to participate in our transportation planning process, regardless of your race, color, national origin, including limited English proficiency, religion, creed, gender, ancestry, ethnicity, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, veteran status, or background. You can read the full notice of your rights and protections at www.boston_MPO.org/MPO_DISCRIMINATION. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Zoom products are compliant with exceptions with the following standards: Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1, Level AA standards, and revised Section 508 standards. If you require any additional accommodations in order to participate fully in this meeting, or if you have any technical difficulties, please contact Abby Katrooms Harima of the MPO staff at acutrubes@ctps.org or 857-702-3682 or via the chat box. All participants will join the meeting with muted microphones. Please rename yourself to include your first name, last name, and affiliation. After roll call, board members may mute and unmute themselves. Always remain muted unless actively speaking. To participate in the discussion, please select the raise hand function. Find this by clicking either on the participants button at the bottom of the screen, and a window will pop up with a raise hand button at the bottom, or the reactions button in the toolbar. The chair will then call on participants. If you are on the phone, you can use *9 to raise your hand. First item on the agenda is introductions. Please call the roll.
Thank you. I'll call the roll. MassDOT seat 1.
This is David Moeller representing Secretary Monica Tibbetts-Nutt.
Thank you. MassDOT seat 2.
Good morning, Lidis Lyoto, presenting John Bouchard, Deputy Chief of Project Management, MassDOT.
Thank you. Good morning, Liris. MassDOT Highway Division.
John Romano, MassDOT Highway here.
Morning. MBTA.
Good morning, Sandy Johnson, representing General Manager Filling in the MBTA.
Good morning. Regional Transportation Authorities, Metro West Transit Authority.
Good morning. This is Tyler Tarasi, representing Administrator Jim Nee for the Metro West Regional Transit Authority present.
Good morning. Massport.
Hi, good morning. This is Sarah Lee, representing Massport.
Hello, Sarah. MAPC.
Good morning. Julia Wallace here, representing MAPC.
Hi, Julia. Next is the MBTA Advisory Board.
Good morning, Hannah Solikowski, MBTA Advisory Board.
Hi, Hannah. Advisory Council, please.
Leonard Diggins, Advisory Council here.
Hello, Leonard. City of Boston, seat 1.
General representing Mayor Michelle Wu in the City of Boston.
Hello, welcome. City of Boston, seat 2.
Nayeli Rodriguez, also representing Mayor Michelle Wu in the City of Boston.
Welcome. At-large city, City of Everett.
Morning, Jay Monty, representing Mayor DeMaria in the City of Everett.
Hello. At-large city, City of Newton.
Good morning, David Kozis, representing Mayor Ruth Ann Fuller in the City of Newton.
Good morning. At-large town of Arlington.
This is John Alessi, representing Select Board Chair Diane Mahan and the Town of Arlington.
Hello, John. At-large town of Brookline.
Good morning. This is Erin Chute, representing Select Board Chair Bernard Green for the Town of Brookline.
Morning. Intercore Committee, City of Somerville.
Morning. This is Brad Rawson, representing Mayor Ballantyne, the City of Somerville, and the MAPC Intercore Subregion.
Good morning. Minuteman Advisory Group on Interlocal Coordination, Town of Acton. Oh, I think Kristen is in the waiting room, so I will return. Metro West Regional Collaborative, City of Framingham.
Eric Johnson, substituting for Dennis Giambetti for Framingham Metro West Regional Collaborative.
Welcome, Eric. North Shore Task Force, City of Beverly.
Hi, Darlene Wynn, representing Mayor Cahill on behalf of the North Shore Task Force.
Hello, Darlene. Minuteman Advisory Group on Interlocal Coordination, Town of Acton.
Good morning, Kristen Guichard here representing Select Board Member Fran Arsenal for the Magic Subregion.
Good morning, Kristen. South Shore I'm sorry. I'm gonna go back. North Suburban Planning Council, Town of Burlington.
Hi, this is John Strauss representing the Town of Burlington. Nick Priest, Chairman of the Select Board and the North Shore Planning Council.
Welcome, John. South Shore Coalition, Town of Hall. Next, we'll go to Southwest Advisory Planning Committee, Town of Rentham. Next, Three Rivers Interlocal Council, Town of Norwood.
Good morning, Tom O'Rourke from the town of Norwood, representing the Trick subregion.
Good morning, Tom. Do we have a member from the Federal Highway Administration? And the Federal Transit Administration? Is there anyone on roll call that I have not called upon? Okay, with that calls the roll. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dave. Next item is the chair's report, and I've been asked today to just briefly speak on the letter that all grant recipients should have received by now from USDOT Secretary Sean Duffy. So the letter reminds us all of the USDOT's interpretation of what our responsibilities are. It specifically references DEI programs and ICE enforcement. We at the administration have the letter under review and are working on our response. But there is no action that is required for anyone to take right now. The letter specifically lets everybody know that program offices will be, I think it says will be in touch, or you can contact them. So I think what is going to happen is that as grant agreements are, all the pending grant agreements could move to finalization, this will become an issue for us to discuss. But there's nothing to be done today, and that's pretty much all we know, I think. Is there questions? Does anybody have any comments or concerns? Seeing and hearing none. Next item is the Executive Director's report. Tegan?
Thank you, David. Thanks, everybody. Sorry for my voice again. We've been dealing with some bouts of the flu at my household, so bear with me. Before I kick off what is actually a very brief Executive Director's report, I just want to call attention to something that is just sort of a best practice now that AI is a pretty common tool being used in our work nowadays, and just that somebody has initiated using AI for note-taking during this meeting. And it's just a best practice to make sure that everybody in the meeting is aware of that. It shows up in the chat, but I also wanted to acknowledge it verbally as well. With that, go to the next slide, please. So I only need to just very briefly say that we have what we have on the agenda for today and then what we have coming up. Next slide, please. Today, after our usual business, next slide. We will have two primary presentations. The first, you'll actually be hearing from me again, along with Stella Jordan, the manager of our public engagement program, to talk to you a bit more about next steps for the restructuring of the advisory body that informs this MPO. And then we'll have a presentation from some of our MassDOT colleagues on the Highway Division update on the Newton Weston Bridge replacements and rehabilitations at I-90 and I-95. Next slide, please. So for the next meeting, we will be meeting on May 15th. That's our usual third Thursday of the month at 10 o'clock in the morning. It'll be a virtual meeting again. And among a few other items potentially on the agenda, we will likely be talking about the approval of TIP Amendment 11 for the 25 to 29 TIP, which has been out for public comment. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to turn it over to any questions.
Thank you, Tegan. Any questions for Tegan? Seeing none, next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment at this time? Seeing and hearing none, if you'd like to comment during the meeting, please let us know and we will try to call on you. Next item is committee chairs reports. Are there any? Jay Monty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everybody. The Congestion Management Committee met on April 24th, and we discussed the network for we'll be looking at in the long-range transportation plan. This will be our bike PED, and then vehicle and transit network. So we'll be continuing to refine that. But any folks who have any comments, questions, and want to participate, please let me know.
Thank you, Jay. Any questions for Jay? Seeing none, Jen Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'll share first that the draft tip went out for public review on April 28th and will remain open until May 28th. Staff will put a link in the chat where you can find the document and the email address to send comments. Big thanks to staff for all the production work that went into the meeting that. The NET committee, tip committee, tip process engagement and readiness committee will meet again in 2 weeks, Thursday, May 15th. The agenda will include any changes anticipated to the program of projects between what went out for the draft tip and what staff expect to present to the board as the final document for us to endorse on June 5th. So far, that's shaping up to be a pretty quick item, as staff have yet to identify any changes to the program of projects. We'll also debrief the TIP development process, including the role and direction of the TIP committee, and we'll continue discussing a new set of expectations for projects in the regional target program, which I expect that discussion to continue into the summer. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jen. Lynn, do you have a question? Oh, wait, any questions for Jen? Seeing none. Lynn, you have something?
Well, I was going to ask if there was going to be statement about the excellent transit working group meeting that we had last week. That was led by Abby. Because it was really good. No.
Megan?
I apologize. I was not at that meeting, and so I was not prepared to provide comments on that, but that is an
Okay.
important engagement update. So what we can do is add that to our update for next week or the next
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah,
That
no,
makes
it was
sense?
shorter than planned, but it was really excellent. So I think it'd be great if folks more folks knew about it. That's it. Thank you.
That's great
Thank you,
feedback.
Lynn.
Thanks, Lynn.
Melissa?
Hi, David. I don't know if I should have said this at the public comment about the authorized alternates, not really a committee issue, but
Go ahead and do it now, Melissa. That's fine. No
okay,
worries.
thank you. I just wanted the board to know that, on behalf of Burlington, we updated our authorized voting members for MPO and included John Strauss, who's on here today. John Strauss and I have been working together. He's a huge transportation advocate for the suburban communities, including and very knowledgeable, the transportation committee here in Burlington. John, I don't know if you want to just unplug and just say hi and acknowledge everyone. So he will be an additional alternate when I can't be here. So it helps the continuity given that we have a very skeletal crew here in Burlington.
Thank you, Melissa, for that great introduction. And yes, Melissa's right. I've been involved in transportation for quite a while, starting with the Burlington Town Meeting Transportation Committee 3 years ago. So some of the names here I'm familiar with, Leonard, Sandy, Tegan. And it's just great to be back into this field. In Burlington, we did kind of sort of wander away a little bit, but we're back and we're looking to get connected and become a real part of the region. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Welcome aboard.
Thanks, David.
Yep, you're welcome, Melissa. Next item is the minutes of March 20th. Can I get a motion and a second to approve, and please state your name for the record? Jen Rowe.
I will motion to approve. I do have an edit I'd like to make, but I can do that when after we have the second.
Okay, John Alessi.
I was going to second the motion.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Any comments, changes, questions, or suggestions? Jen Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just in the section that was I think in the minutes on page 4 under the committee chair's report, I think there was both, like in my report, I wanted to kind of clarify that there was both a staff update on the project rescoring process, and that also that was followed by an initial discussion, which had to be cut short and therefore didn't reach a recommendation. And then I had also reported that we discussed some initial programming scenarios and several committee members did express preferences, but we didn't reach a recommendation to share with the full board. And following that, Melissa asked a question, which in the minutes, I think, say it was about the rescoring process. I think generally the question was around why the committee hadn't come up with a recommendation, and that she would, be looking to a committee to understand and guide and provide a recommendation. And I had explained then that the intent was to try to get to one, but we didn't really have enough time for members to digest everything and come to one. So that's I think just capturing that back and forth.
Thank you, Jim. So with that clarification and correction, please call the roll.
Certainly. David Moeller,
Yes.
Liris Lioto,
Yes.
John Romano,
John Romano, yes.
Sandy Johnston,
Yes.
Tyler Terasi,
Tyler Terasi, yes.
Sarah Lee,
Sarah Lee, yes.
Julia Wallers,
Julia Wallers, yes.
Hannah Switlikowski,
Hannah Swilikowski, yes.
Len Diggins,
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe,
Jenro, yes.
Nayeli Rodriguez,
Natalie Rodriguez, yes.
Jay Monty,
Jay Monty, yes.
David Kozis,
David Kozis, yes.
John Alessi,
John Alessi, yes.
Aaron Shute,
Aaron Chute, yes, and Amy Ingalls will be representing the town of Brookline for the remainder of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you. Brad Rawson,
Brad Rawson, yes.
Kristen Guichard,
Kristen Guichard, yes.
Eric Johnson,
Eric Johnson, yes.
Darlene Nguyen,
Darlene Nguyen, yes.
and in this case for NSPC, would it be John?
Yes, it would. John Strauss, yes.
Thank you, John. And then Tom O'Rourke.
Tom O'Rourke, yes.
Anyone I have not called? Motion carries. With that, back to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is an advisory council restructuring update by Tegan Tyke and Stella Jordan. Take it away, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, David. Hi, everyone, again. It's nice to be back talking for a few minutes. Today, I'm going to be presenting with Stella Jordan to update you on our progress towards restructuring the MPO's advisory body. So what I'm going to do is I'll kick us off with a brief recap of the how and why the restructuring was initiated before passing it off to Stella to talk about the work we've been doing in the interim and sort of the next steps going forward. So let's go to the next slide, please. Next slide. So first, the Memorandum of Understanding, or the MOU of this MPO has always, which means since the 70s, called for an advisory body that plays a key role in your planning processes. So this board endorsed the most recent MOU in September of 2024, September of last year. And that followed a really robust update process that was carried out primarily by an ad hoc committee supported by staff. That update included contributions from board members as well as former members of what was the Regional Transportation Advisory Council. And that led us to an update of the description of the advisory body and the role it's intended to play in the MOU, among other updates. The update around the description of the advisory body was also recommended in our last federal certification review. And then what we came up with for the updated description for the mission and role of the Advisory Council includes elevating diverse perspectives from stakeholders throughout the region, creating space for knowledge building while advising the development of MPO programs and projects to ensure that they're responsive to public priorities. To support the process of updating this description, we did have many meetings, multiple meetings with members of the then current advisory body, as I mentioned, the Regional Transportation Advisory Council. And we asked them and had discussions about their thoughts on the purpose and the mission of the group. And in parallel to that, we also researched the structures and roles of advisory bodies at peer MPOs to help inform those discussions with the Advisory Council as well as with the ad hoc committee. Next slide, please. So with all that work going on, several challenge questions emerged that I've previewed with this board before, but since it's been a while, we thought we'd just briefly recap them. And that led us to the goals that we identified for restructuring the advisory body. So those were around how the advisory council membership can be more diverse and representative, especially of the perspectives that are not currently well represented in the MPO's membership. How can the advisory council be more deeply aligned with and supportive of the MPO's engagement program and engagement practices more broadly, which have been evolving significantly for this MPO over the last 5 years? And how can the advisory council have a more direct impact on MPO processes and decision-making? With those questions in mind, the restructuring as it's been formulated it's aiming to develop a membership and a meeting format that will help address those challenges and align the new advisory council more closely with the mission that is defined in the MOU. So the restructured advisory council will continue to be a key stakeholder on the board and in MPO decision-making, bringing input that reflects a range of community voices in our planning and policy decisions. Next slide, please. Well, in terms of the timeline, I first announced the restructuring of the MPO's advisory body to you in September of last year, around the same time that the MOU was endorsed. And then since then, we as staff have been developing plans for the new group. We sunsetted the Regional Transportation Advisory Council in its former structure in November. And over the past several months, staff have been planning for the membership and meeting structure of that new group. And the restructuring plans are currently now just being finalized. And so we're planning to launch an application process to begin soliciting new members shortly, and wanted to speak with this board before we did that. And then we plan to stand up the new advisory council over the next few months, with a group formally launching over the summer. Next slide, please. We are naming the new group the Community Advisory Council to reflect the focus on community perspectives and the representation of the diverse voices in our region. And the mission, again, in alignment with the description in the MOU, is to elevate those voices and priorities of underrepresented communities in the MPO planning process, and to help center our work on community perspectives. This advisory council will continue to play a critical role in advising the MPO's work through maintaining that voting seat on the MPO board and on committees, and through maintaining close connections with staff throughout the development of programs and projects that we engage in. It will also continue to be facilitated by public engagement staff as a core component of the MPO's public engagement program. And that is a perfect segue to then hand it off to Stella Jordan, who's the manager of the public engagement program, to talk a bit more about the planning we've been doing and sort of the launch that's coming up for this new group. So with that, I'll pass it off to Stella.
Thank you, Tegan. Yeah, if we could go on to the next slide, please. As Tegan said, I'll just share a little bit more detail about the work that staff have been doing to restructure the advisory council. And if we go on to the next slide, during the past few months since the sunset of the Regional Transportation Advisory Council, we've contacted all of the former members and folks who had been actively engaged with that group in the past. And I was able to hold one-on-one meetings with many of these folks to debrief on their experiences participating in the Regional Transportation Advisory Council over the years. And I was also able to solicit a lot of great input on the planned restructuring. We also coordinated with the leadership of the Regional Transportation Advisory Council, that is Andy Reeker, the vice chair, and Len Diggins, the chair, who has continued to participate in the advisory council seat on the MPO board, and who has been providing a lot of valuable insight to staff. And then we've also been coordinating really closely with staff across the agency throughout this restructuring planning to identify new opportunities for the new Community Advisory Council to engage with and provide input on the development of programs and projects. And so we've been strategizing on ways that we as staff can really maximize the impact of the Advisory Council's input and effectively coordinate that with our planning as well. And in addition to all of this internal and external coordination, we've also been drafting a charter to develop the structure and logistical details for the new advisory council. We've been developing an application process for soliciting new members. And we've been planning the structure, the format, and content of the initial meetings that the new group will hold. Next slide, please. So I'd like to touch on several themes that emerged throughout this restructuring planning process, and particularly themes that were highlighted during my debriefs with former Regional Transportation Advisory Council members and all of that coordination that I was just talking about. So a major theme, which is consistent with our goals for this restructuring, is that the Advisory Council should be a space that can elevate voices and perspectives from stakeholders and communities that are not currently represented well in the MPO's planning process. We've also gotten a lot of affirmation of the importance of building a solid foundation of knowledge and understanding of the transportation planning process for new members when the group is formed. And so with that, we're planning to draw from our experience facilitating the Pilot Community Planning Lab educational program last fall. And that will help us to develop onboarding materials and processes for the new Community Advisory Council. Related to that, many former Regional Transportation Advisory Council members in particular discussed the importance of understanding the LRTP and the long-range planning process, and really how that can be helpful in framing and focusing discussions about the MPO's work and about transportation planning priorities in general. My conversations also underscored the importance of making sure that the new advisory council is effectively connected to the program and project work across the agency, and that they're really able to engage at times in the development cycles of MPO work that allow their input to be meaningfully incorporated. So such as at the start of a project development or scoping process, or as recommendations are being developed rather than just hearing about a project after it's completed. And then finally, the theme that came up the most throughout my conversations, and particularly during my debriefs with former Regional Transportation Advisory Council members, is the critical importance of the advisory role that the Advisory Council plays, both for staff, but also especially in the context of the MPO board. And as Tegan mentioned earlier, this restructuring, I think, really offers us a great opportunity to elevate new perspectives in this space, which we may not have been hearing in the past. The advisory role and function is both a draw for potential new members to join the group, and also, I think, a very valuable asset to all of us in providing new and different input, which is grounded in community perspectives and public interest that can really help inform our planning decisions. Next slide, please. So as we get closer to standing up the new Community Advisory Council, we've also been planning the structure and content of the initial meetings for the new group. So we'll tailor some of the materials around the backgrounds and interests of the new members that join the group, but we plan to start with a kind of baseline 101 level MPO introduction, which will draw on the content and the interactive and participatory activities that we use for the Community Planning Lab program. As I mentioned on the previous slide, based on a lot of that input as well, we'll definitely structure our initial content around the LRTP and use that as a framework, really understanding the purpose and goals of the MPO's work and highlighting how our programs and projects are interconnected. This will also provide us a great opportunity to gather some initial input around the development of the next long-range plan as well. We also expect that after a couple of introductory meetings where new members are onboarding and getting to know each other and the MPO's work, the new group will then elect a chair and vice chair. And if we go on to the next slide to speak a bit more on that governance aspect, after the Community Advisory Council elects their chair and vice chair, a new Advisory Council representative will then join the MPO board. But when the new Community Advisory Council members are selected and the new group is formed, the current Advisory Council representation on the board will transition out. Since, as I mentioned, the new Community Advisory Council will spend a couple of meetings onboarding before electing their new leadership and representatives, this does mean that there will be a small number of MPO meetings at which there will not be a formal Advisory Council representative present. During this time, staff will provide updates on the formation and onboarding process of the new group. In terms of governance more generally, I also just want to mention that similarly to the former Regional Transportation Advisory Council, the new Community Advisory Council is a group that is independent of the MPO board. MPO staff provide the group administrative support and help facilitate meetings. We also help facilitate the connections that we've been discussing between the Advisory Council and MPO programs, projects, and processes, really to help ensure that the Advisory Council has those timely and effective opportunities to provide input and advice. But the perspectives that the group brings to staff and the board will be shaped by the Community Advisory Council members and really grounded in the community needs and priorities that those members are representing. And the perspective that the new Advisory Council representative to the MPO board will bring will be reflective of the discussions that occur amongst all of the members and the priorities of the group as a whole. Next slide, please. So the most immediate next step in our planning process for forming the new Community Advisory Council is to launch an application process and begin soliciting new members. And just to talk about an application briefly, the purpose of having an application is really to help us cultivate a group that is in line with the mission and goals of the Advisory Council as written in the MOU. So an application allows us to more easily share information about the purpose and role of the Advisory Council, to set up appropriate expectations for potential new members about what membership will involve, such as what content will be covered and what the time commitment will be. The application also allows us to understand where potential new members are coming from, so what perspectives and priorities they would bring to the group. That helps staff both more effectively plan and facilitate meetings, as well as ensure that we're helping to build that broad and diverse membership and really elevate perspectives that are not currently well represented in our work. Similar to the membership structure of the Regional Transportation Advisory Council in the past, the new group will primarily include organizational members, so membership will be affiliation-based. We'll be launching applications and encouraging interested stakeholders to apply for membership starting next week. So we'll be sharing the applications across our public communication channels and also conducting targeted outreach. And we'll be asking our partners and colleagues to help us spread the word to ensure that we're casting as wide of a net as possible. With that, I'd love to encourage all of you as well to share the application once it's launched with stakeholders in your communities. Really help us encourage folks that you think would be interested to apply. We'll keep you all updated as the new group forms and formally launches, and we really look forward to bringing more new perspectives into these conversations looking forward. And if we go on to the next slide, I'd just like to end with sort of a quick look ahead over the next few months as this restructuring process is finalized and as the new Community Advisory Council is formed. So following this conversation today, as I mentioned, we'll prepare to launch application materials next week. We'll be soliciting applications for at least a month, and depending on the volume of applicants that we receive, we hope to establish the new Community Advisory Council membership by the end of June, at which point the governance transition for the Advisory Council representative on the MPO board would also begin. And then over July and August, we'll spend time onboarding the new group and holding those initial educational and LRTP focused meetings that I discussed earlier. And after folks have onboarded, we'll support an election process for the new Community Advisory Council chair and vice chair. And our hope for this is for that to happen by September, at which point the new Advisory Council representative would then join the MPO board. And again, we'll certainly keep you all updated as this process moves forward, since there are many moving parts. But with that, that is the last slide. So if we go on to the next one, we'd be happy to take any questions and discussion.
Thank you, Stella and Tegan. Any questions from the members? Brad Ross.
Thank you, Chair. More of a comment rather than questions, so I appreciate your indulgence here. I just wanted to thank staff for a great presentation. This work sounds really, really important, and I'm sure many members will join me in thanking Len Diggins for his excellent service. Len, thank you for your thought leadership in this space and during this transition planning. For any newer members on this MPO chair, I think it's important to remind us that our amazing Executive Director, Tegan Tyke, served in the role of RTAC representative on the board for many years. And the continuity, the family tree of our process improvements really speaks to the great collaboration between Len, Tegan, and so many other folks over the years. We know that building and sustaining broad coalitions and inviting participation is important to this MPO and to our members. Just yesterday, Chair, I was speaking on a national panel with my good friend and collaborator, Jay Monty. This professional association was for transportation demand management professionals across the country. And we had the opportunity to actually remind them of the importance of MPOs in general. And I think that that illustrates the types of coalitions that we're trying to build and diversify as we link transportation and land use issues in Metro Boston, in New England, and across the country. This presentation today is making me feel like we're really on the right track. So I'm delighted to receive this update and look forward to continuing to support the work of the Community Advisory Council in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Nayeli Rodriguez.
Thank you. Also, I have more of a comment, but I wanted to express general support for the direction this restructuring is going, and particularly the goal of bringing in new perspectives that the staff and the board aren't currently hearing much from. And given the interest that the city of Boston, and I think everyone has, in including environmental perspectives in the recent work, I'm wondering if there are any particular perspectives, maybe on the environmental sustainability or resilience side, that staff will be actively seeking out.
Dagan or Stella?
I can jump in. Yeah, I think the work that we did last year on the environmental outreach and engagement study that we presented on, I believe, over the winter, really helped us kind of build a foundation of initial relationships with environmental stakeholders. And I think we're looking at that as being really a great pool of potential members to draw from as well. I think we heard a lot of interest from those stakeholders that we talked to throughout that study in being more involved in the MPO's work and being more involved in kind of the transportation planning process in general, especially as it relates to environmental considerations. And so that's absolutely, I think, really essential perspectives that we'd want to encourage to join the new group. And we have, I think, a really great foundation to work from there with the relationships that we've been building.
Thank you. Steve Olenoff.
Yes, so I'm very familiar with the advisory council. I was chair for 4 years, a 2-year period, and another 2-year period. So the membership used to be 3 types. There was cities and towns, there was agencies, state agencies, and various independent groups, environmental groups, things like that. So over the years, they kind of like the groups, the independent nonprofit groups kind of dropped out, and the agencies also kind of fewer and fewer. And what was left recently was the cities and towns. So I was just wondering, what should we be telling the cities and towns they should do? So what you said is you weren't very specific about the kinds of membership you're looking for. And I think we need to hear more about specifically who you're looking for and how you're going to attract them. And in particular for cities and towns, should they be reapplying, or who should be applying? I know in my town, it's done by the planning board. They appoint a representative to the advisory council every year. I don't know that it's ever shown up, in recent years. Back when I was years ago on there, I was the one that was the representative. So what kind of representation are you looking for those cities and towns, so we can let them know, should they apply with and how? I think a lot of cities and towns at this point will be wondering, okay, what do we do next? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. That's a good question. I think, we're not excluding anyone from applying. We welcome applications from any type of entity or representative. But what we really want to highlight, as we've been kind of alluding to throughout this presentation, is really those perspectives that we feel aren't currently being represented well in the MPO's work. And I know there are cities and towns that aren't represented on this board necessarily, but we do have a pretty robust, municipal engagement on staff currently. And we also rely on the MAPC sub-regional groups as forums where cities and towns can elevate their priorities that we can collect that input from. So, I don't want to say that we wouldn't accept applications from a certain type of stakeholder. I think what we really do want to emphasize is those perspectives that we haven't been as close in contact with over the past few years, and particularly those perspectives from community-based organizations and from groups and entities representing communities that we know we don't hear from as much. And I also just want to say, the advisory council is one of many other public engagement activities that we do at the MPO. And so while it is a really big emphasis and a really great opportunity to elevate new perspectives and for people to come together, and we want it to be a very diversely representative group of a variety of perspectives in the region, not just of a single type of entity. There are also many other ways and many other spaces that folks can come and talk to us and share their priorities and talk to each other. So I just, I wanted to throw that out there, and we're always happy to chat with people and help them find those spaces if needed.
So are you de-emphasizing representation by cities and towns? Is that sort of what it sounds like? I mean, in the cities and towns right now, the other way they're representative, and it probably is fairly effective, is through the subregions. Subregions have meetings, and every city and town is at that subregion, and from the subregion, then they can have input to either the advisory council or directly several times a year. Members of the MPO staff come out to the various subregions and get that kind of input. Are you saying that's the preferred way of doing it now rather than through the advisory council?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that I'm de-emphasizing anything right now. I think, as I said, anyone, including cities and towns, are welcome to apply to join the new group. And we do imagine that there will be some types of members. It really depends on what the volume of applications we get and from whom. But yeah, I would say, there are several spaces where cities and towns can go and talk to each other and share their priorities with us already. And so this is a space where we really want to, to create more space for different types of perspectives as well.
Jinro?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Stella and Tegan for a great, very thoughtful presentation, and echoing thanks to Len for his service in that role, Steve too, and Tegan and all the past chairs and members. I think similar to how Nelly spoke, like support this kind of direction for the body, and certainly I think one of the key roles to the advisory council being to elevate voices that are less heard. I would say having some municipal representatives, depending on the size, and I don't think you need probably there. It is true that I think the membership had skewed towards municipal members, so maybe having fewer seems appropriate. I do think having some, I think, allowed a degree of, I think one created a pathway for municipalities to begin having a more established relationship with the MPO, beyond just kind of making comments at meetings. So I think there was some value in that. And also, I think I saw a lot come from a helpful exchange between municipal and professional planners, and then folks who were members of the advisory council but may not have come from a transportation background. And I think that's actually something we can maybe cultivate more and more of, with more voices from outside the transportation community per se. And I think like kind of the conversation between those two kind of can help, one, bring in outside perspectives, but to also have those be in dialogue with folks who understand some of the constraints that we're all working under, in the way that our transportation planning and processes are set up. So anyway, I wanted to kind of add my thoughts in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question about, I think I was a little confused when you said that the title was Community Advisory Committee, because in my mind, perhaps, and I was equating community with municipality. Perhaps maybe that was what Steve was thinking about also. So, but apparently, obviously, you're defining community much more broadly than just municipality. And so, I don't know, I found it a little bit, I wasn't really sure what you meant when you originally with the title of community, because some people could that could lead people in different ways. The other question I had was about this focus on the long-range transportation plan. I'm just sort of wondering why that is. You know, the business of this MPO very often is, I know we develop, you know, a plan every 4 years, and it guides, you know, sort of the foundation of a lot of things we do, and I understand that. But the day-to-day, you know, the day-to-day activities of this MPO more relates to things like the TIP and the actual studies and work scopes and things like that. So I'm just sort of, can you just talk about why there's this focus on the long-range transportation plan?
Yeah, I can start, and Tegan, feel free to jump in. So I'll start with first the name Community Advisory Council. I think one of the things we wanted to do when we created a new name for the new group was to really find ways that we can emphasize the mission and bringing in a range of different perspectives from communities around the region. And right, well, community can certainly have a connotation as like a municipality in particular. I think we weren't really thinking about those sort of political geographic boundaries. It was more that there's many different types of communities, both geographically, demographically, socially, throughout our region. We have a very broad and diverse region. And so we want to try to emphasize as best we can the range of perspectives from the many different types of communities in our region. And whether that's, you know, a city or a town or a smaller community or a larger community. So I understand the potential confusion, and we can definitely try to clarify some of that in, you know, our communications around launching the application and when we're actually talking to people about what this is, but appreciate the perspective. And then just on the second question on the LRTP focus, I want to just say it's something that was highlighted by a lot of our conversations with former RTAC members and leadership, that really understanding the LRTP is very critical to understanding the rest of the MPO's work, because it is the sort of guiding, like, overarching vision and framework from which the rest of the MPO's work flows, including things like the TIP and the discrete studies that we do. And we're really thinking about the ways that we can highlight as staff those kind of interconnections between our work, being that everything that we do really should be in service of the goals that we set in the LRTP. And so we think that that would be a really useful way to sort of dive into the MPO's role in the region and the regional transportation planning process more generally. But it really is also just a structure that we're intending to use to onboard people, given that it helps kind of highlight those interconnections. And then from there, we will certainly dive into the TIP, the studies that we do, the other work that the MPO does. So the group's focus won't be restricted to the long range plan by any means. I think it's just a useful vehicle for understanding and digging into the rest of the work after that.
Megan, you have something you want to add?
Sure, thank you. I think Stella is responding to all the points very well, so I just will layer on just a little bit more to emphasize that this is certainly a shift, and intentionally a shift from how the group has been structured in the past. But I really want to emphasize that I think that that's really important, because this MPO has also changed a lot since the last sort of thinking or talking about the structure of the advisory body happened, which was closer to the early 2000s, I think the beginning of 2001, when the group was actually renamed from its prior name into the Regional Transportation Advisory Council. And one of the things that has really shifted is the municipal representation, both on the board itself, but also how we are approaching and evolving our committees of the MPO board as well. We've seen a lot more municipal engagement more broadly on the TIP committee, for example. We've also been expanding the purview of the UPWP committee to focus on all of the work that the MPO does on an ongoing basis, in addition to the kind of the individual discrete studies that have been a large focus in the past. We're relaunching and sort of engaging in a different way the congestion management process committee. And so what we really want to make sure that we're doing with the advisory body is hitting kind of the stakeholders that we're not capturing in any other of those forums very well, and do it in a really unique and engaging way so that we have a really robust body of input coming through this seat that is sitting on the board. And that is in a different way than any of those other kind of bodies that exists are providing input into the board. And so I just kind of want to layer that on to what Stella is talking about and why we're rethinking what the membership should look like, and what that makeup can be and how that input can then come to the board.
Thanks. Glenn, you have a question?
Yes, a statement, a few questions, and then maybe a final statement. And so first off, thank you everyone who said such kind words. I mean, it's been a real pleasure being on this board, and it's been a rewarding experience, mainly because it's been such a great learning experience. I mean, so for my questions, I mean, what did past members who left the advisory council have to say about their reasons for not participating?
I think it was really varied across my conversations, ranging from just capacity issues to kind of feeling like the group wasn't maybe as connected as it could be to some of the like planning decision making that the MPO is doing. That the opportunities to provide input were maybe smaller than folks expected initially. Which, you know, again, kind of ties into a lot of the goals in this restructuring. And then I think folks had really different perspectives throughout my conversations on what the ideal kind of format of meetings was, whether it was learning and hearing presentations about relevant work happening in the region, or whether it was really digging into technical documents that the MPO is producing, or whether it was you know, workshop style, like advice provision to staff. So I heard a really broad range of kind of thoughts and expectations around what people preferred and didn't prefer within meetings. And I think some of that led to the membership of RTAC kind of growing smaller over the years as it did. But I think all of that was really useful in kind of figuring out how we might be able to strike a balance between those different types of things in meetings, you know, given that we want to emphasize opportunities for building knowledge around regional transportation issues that folks are interested in, but then also really connecting people directly to the work that the MPO is doing in ways that their input can really be acted upon.
Gotcha. All right, thank you. So are you still oriented more towards organizations, I mean, as opposed to individuals? The stakeholders are going to be organizations, right?
Yeah, we'll primarily, similar to how RTAC was structured, it will primarily do organizational affiliation, but again, we're not precluding any sorts of membership. So we expect that some individuals will apply and ultimately find their way onto the group as well.
Right. That'll help me determine, you know, who I let know, I mean, that they should apply. And so, I mean, do you have a sense of what you consider the optimal size, I mean, for the group? And I know that's a bit of a superlative, but do you have like a range? I mean, are you thinking like a group of 12 to 20 or larger?
I think somewhere around between 10 to 20 would be really ideal for staff. I think perhaps what might happen, depending on the application volumes we receive this first round, is that we start with a smaller group and then expand over time. But I think somewhere in that range would be ideal for us right now.
Right. So I didn't hear you mention anything about compensation as maybe a reason that folks didn't continue participating, but I know you brought up the notion of compensation. Have you worked that out?
Yeah. So we do plan to provide stipends to members who aren't affiliated with a government entity. So any organizations, community-based groups, and individuals who would aim to provide a stipend to reduce any barriers they may face in giving the amount of time that we're expecting to this group.
Gotcha. I mean, so just a couple more comments. I mean, I understand where Ken's coming from with the community advisory group, and maybe just adding regional might help a little bit. But I understand Ken's initial thoughts about that. And respect to focusing on the LRTP, I applaud that because I think the key to the LRTP and everyone knows what I'm about to say, is the needs assessment. And based from that, I think everything flows, including the tip, almost everything else, the MPO does. So if people can really get a good handle on that, then I think they will go far. And I'll just close by saying that, a lot of times people say it's not rocket science, and to say as if to say that rocket science is like the hardest thing out there. But I actually think that Newtonian physics, is relatively easy compared to biology. And biology compared to like the transportation and all the social elements that go around it is little in comparison to what we do here. It's very complex, and it takes a while to learn it. And just as it takes a lot of practice and dedication to become good at a sport, or a musical instrument, please just try to not enforce that, but inculcate that. I don't know if that's quite the right word, but get people to understand that in order to be able to get to a point where they can give advice, they really got to put the effort into it, and learning really is a function, of time and effort, and they'll get out of it what they put into it, and I know that often we say we need to meet people where they are, and yes, meet them there, but then help them get down the road, to where they can really come closer to their goal, and that's going to really take a lot of effort on everyone's part. So that's it. I wish the new group the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Jinro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to jump off kind of where Len was going. I think one idea that's come to mind as you discuss, maybe some of the reasons that past members, didn't stay on, and kind of wanting, we all want to feel like what we're spending our time on is effective. And I think one key aspect of that you're addressing is making sure that this group can, share its perspectives effectively with the MPO. And I think another piece to that too, I think, is creating expectations around the people who are participating, just as I think the expectations are for board members on the MPO board itself to be sharing back with the kind of communities that they're representing. And I think what, as Len spoke eloquently to, like, transportation is complex and there's, so many different pieces to it, and to kind of be engaging in the decision making and change making that we do, requires, like, you can of course make change start, from the get-go, but also, like, as you learn more, you can be more effective. And so I think maybe having a piece of what these members do is kind of expectations around, sharing this knowledge, maybe helping staff craft future iterations of the community planning lab, expectations around trying to get more folks involved in this, collective process we're all engaged in. Could be a good way to help people feel like what they're doing is making an impact.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Thank you, Stella. Taking, you got something you want to say?
Thanks, David. I just wanted to close this out by saying thank you so much for all of the comments. I didn't say this at the beginning and I should have, but our hope was to make sure that we gave enough time to have a real conversation with this board about this body, because it really is an essential part of the governance and the input into the board. So I just wanted to thank everybody for participating in the conversation and really for the very thoughtful comments.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a presentation from the Highway Division on the Newton Weston Bridge replacement and rehabilitation. Marco Pereira and John Romano, whenever you guys are ready.
Hey, Dave, John Romano. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having us this morning. Marco is going to give the presentation, but I just wanted to give a 30-second preamble. 2 weekends, one at the end of May 30th to June 2nd, and then June 20th to June 23rd. There's going to be a reduction in the Mass Pike in this area from 3 lanes down to 1 for the whole weekend. We are encouraging people to stay away from this area. You will see through this presentation important work that needs to be done, but with people not staying away, it's going to be a mess. So even though traffic volumes are much lower during the weekend, we still need to keep people as much as possible away from the area. And commuter rail will also be shut down and bused during these 2 weekends as well, which will put buses in the same place that the cars want to be. I can't enforce that enough. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Marco to make the presentation, and then we'll take questions at the end.
Thanks,
Thank
John.
you.
Appreciate it. Next slide, please. Project background real quick. It's to replace and rehabilitate 8 bridges at the I-90, I-95 interchange in Newton and Weston. Bridge and roadway safety improvements, increase vertical clearance, and improve seismic resiliency. It's a design build project that's 2 years into a 4.5 years total construction duration. Next slide, please. We'll complete stage 1 of the mainline I-90 bridge over I-95, Charles River, and Ramsay MB, followed by demolition of existing I-90 eastbound bridge and reconstruction of stage 2 within its footprint. Construction on the 3 new Ramp G bridges is underway, and the goal is to have structural steel set and the bridge decks poured by the end of the season, along with construction of the MSE retaining walls and ramp embankments. Rehabilitation work will progress on Bridge 64 Ramp A and B over I-95 on the Charles River with deck replacement, structural steel repairs, and substructure repairs. Demolition and construction will also start on Bridge 65 Ramp A and B over the Charles River. Next slide, please. The overall project schedule is as follows. Rehabilitation and reconstruction of the Ramp A-B bridges is underway. Will continue until November 2028. Construction of the new Ramp G bridges and roadway are underway and will be completed and activated in June 2026. The I-90 over MBTA bridge is underway. We'll get into more detail on its schedule later in this presentation. Last but not least, the largest bridge on the project is I-90 over I-95, the Charles River, and Ramps A and B. Work is currently progressing on stage 1, building out a portion of the new I-90 eastbound bridge. Stage 2 will start midsummer of this year and go to July 2026, constructing the remaining portion of I-90 eastbound bridge and a portion of the I-90 westbound bridge. Finally, stage 3 to complete the remaining section of the I-90 westbound bridge will take place from July 2026 through July 2027. Next slide. I-90 over the MBTA. Next slide again. This is the hot topic. The 2025 anticipated construction operations are to complete temporary median crossovers for upcoming bridge superstructure replacement, preparations for the rapid weekend construction, reduce I-90 to 1 lane in each direction for rapid weekend construction, replace I-90 westbound and eastbound superstructure over the railroad, and remove the median crossover and construct the permanent bridge barrier. Next slide. Picture's worth 1,000 words. To elaborate more on what will take place over the superstructure replacement weekends, the traffic management plan will be deployed on I-90 eastbound and westbound, reducing traffic to 1 lane in each direction. MBTA commuter rail service and Amtrak service will be diverted through the project limits. Crews will demolish approximately 1/2 of the bridge deck and structural steel within the work zone. Next slide again. Crews will then hoist prefabricated bridge units into place, which will be the main structural elements to support I-90 traffic over the railroad. Next slide. Crews will then lock together the PBUs with high performance concrete closure pours. And next slide again. Once the closure pours are cured, traffic barriers will be realigned, construction equipment and materials will be removed from the work zone. Ultimately, motor vehicle traffic and train traffic will be restored for the Monday morning commute. Next slide again. Stage 1A MBTA Amtrak bridge impacts. The rapid construction weekends are Friday, May 30th through Monday, June 2nd, Friday, June 20th through Monday, June 23rd. The I-90 impacts are lane reductions, 1 lane in each direction of I-90 eastbound and westbound, construction from 9 p.m. on Friday to 5 a.m. on Monday. The rail impacts are the Worcester commuter rail service between Framingham and South Station. Buses will replace the last commuter rail trip on Friday and replace all trips on Saturday and Sunday. And Amtrak service along the Lakeshore Limited between Boston and Albany. Buses will replace the last Amtrak trip on Friday, all trips on Saturday and Sunday, and the first trip on Monday. Next slide. The I-90 dry run, which is this weekend, I-90 will be restricted from 3 lanes to 1 in each direction beginning 9 p.m. on Friday, May 2nd. I-90 will reopen to 3 lanes by 7 a.m. on Saturday, May 3rd. If necessary, it will be repeated on Saturday, May 3rd at 9 p.m. to make any adjustments. Slide. Commuter rail station impacts as follows. There'll be 2 shuttle routes. The first will be Framingham, West Natick, Natick Center, Wellesley Square, Wellesley Hills, Wellesley Farms, Auburndale to Riverside, with increased Green Line D service. Number 2 will be West Newton, Newtonville, Boston Landing to Kenmore, where customers can take the B, C, or D Green Line branches. Lansdowne is a walking diversion to Fenway on Green Line D. And of course, please visit the MBTA alert section for more information. Slide. I-90 lane reductions. This slide introduces the traffic management approach. As you can see, the magenta line represents the extent of the lane reduction on I-90, and the purple line shows the MBTA commuter rail tracks. Where these lines intersect is the location of the bridge replacement. The lane closures will begin about 1 mile prior to the work zone in the eastbound direction and approximately 3/4 miles prior in the westbound direction. Slide. Anticipated traffic impacts are as follows. Here you can see the areas that are expected to have increased congestion due to the construction. The impacts are going to be significant. MassDOT is encouraging people to avoid the area if at all possible. Regional travel options. This map shows the regional roadway networks. Our hope is that people located in the area north of I-90 will utilize Route 2 to travel into the Boston area, and that people coming from the south will use I-495 and I-95. Suggest checking Mass 511 before starting your route for live travel updates. Additionally, the project will have message boards throughout the regional roadway network that will provide up-to-the-minute travel times. We're in constant communication with mapping companies, and we recommend that you check your preferred mapping company before heading out on these weekends. Slide. HSH reviewed existing traffic data for the MassDOT permanent count stations to determine alternate routes that may have additional capacity during the closure period. On the top of this map is Route 20 with Route 30 below and Route 9 to the south. As you can see, Route 9 has been identified as having the most additional capacity on the weekend. For people that are more local to the project area and where Route 2 or I-495 are not an option, these routes can act as alternative options to get around the work zone. While there is additional capacity on these routes, drivers should be prepared for added traffic volumes and increased congestion, as it will be busier than a usual weekend. Next slide, please. Stakeholder coordination that we've had is between the highest trip origin destination municipalities, local, regional, emergency response and medical services, local and regional tourism councils, events, sports stadiums and venues, government agencies, transportation and livery, shopping and industrial, and schools. Slide. And that opens the floor for questions, if any.
Thanks, Marco. Anybody got any questions?
David Kozis.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I've already seen some, advisories going out on our local email distribution lists, but we know it's going to be very, very impactful on these 2 weekends. So I'm thinking coming east from New York, where I think no matter what, you're going to have just thousands of of travelers really not knowing what's in store, and probably too late to bail. Um, I'm imagining strongly worded message boards encouraging everyone who possibly could, to bail at 495, right? Um, Otherwise, you know, impacts at 990, and then what is that, exit 117 right there at Natick and Framingham. That's still, I think we saw still pretty far to the west of 128. I'm not sure how far back the backups are going to extend from that direction. But then coming west out of Boston, um, so you said electronic message boards all over, to really try to discourage motorists from even getting on the pike in Boston. Likely, big impacts in Newton Corner, and then especially as we saw on that slide at the exit in West Newton, Route 16, Washington Street. We know it's going to be bad, but it's important, necessary work. And I guess just please let us know if there's anything that the city could do to help in any way. And then I was also thinking about the dry run. So I guess, I'm glad you're doing this. Maybe this is typical in projects like this. I'm just wondering whether we expect to learn anything from this dry run that would actually, cause any sort of change in terms of messaging, right? Or is it already that MassDOT is doing everything they possibly could in terms of the messaging, and it's more like, I guess, specific changes internal to the project? Thanks.
I can answer on the latter case. It's so that the contractor can execute the plan as smoothly as they plan to. In other words, it's not to learn anything from the traffic impacts, it's to make sure they can mobilize the way they have it on paper with no hiccups or few hiccups, and to see any weak points in their crew's mobilization.
We don't want them setting that 3-to-1 configuration for the first time on the weekend that we're doing it, David. With the barrier and all that, the zip barrier. We want to be able to have them do that and work out any kinks, and if there's any flaws in the plan that way. So it's more about the executing the traffic management ahead of time and seeing if there are any issues in timing, because it's all timing, right? We have only a certain window between Friday night and Monday morning to get that roadway open. So that's what it's for. As far as additional messaging, there's going to be a press conference that the highway administrator is going to be doing next week, and then another one to follow the week after. We have 252 digital billboards that we're going to be putting PSA messages on that will also coincide with that first press conference. We'll also be putting them in all the TV screens in the RMV centers, again, matching up with that press conference next week. So you'll start to see that. We're also taking out paid ads, radio, etc. So you'll start to see that all hit at the end of next week. Also, we're going to be sending out messages to all Easy Pass customers as well. So that'll start, all with the intent of like about 3 weeks before, because if we start way too far in advance, it starts to become noise in the background, no pun intended, but they start to see it too far ahead. But about 3 weeks out, we've already started. We actually started about 2 weeks ago David, we briefed the mayor, and we've already, we have a flyer and stuff that we already started sending out, electronically. We had 2 public meetings last 2 weeks ago where we informed the public. So, the outreach has started, but, media wise, you'll start to see that towards the end of next week.
Right, thank you, and just, keep letting us know if there's anything that we could do. I guess during the dry run, you identified Washington Street as a primary route. So maybe during the dry run next week, we'll just take a look at Washington Street and, sort of see how bad it gets, I suppose.
Yeah, and obviously, if you guys see anything, you can let us know as well. We sent a notice out about the dry. We sent a press release out to everybody, about the dry run as well. We did a massive email blast to everybody about the dry run earlier this week. So and you guys continuing to push it out. I know the mayor said she would, work with us to get that out. We've sent her, all of the info we have, and we'll continue to do that as it gets close. We appreciate her, obviously, your help, Newton's help.
Thank you, John.
In row.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to ask if you could also forward to me some of the material and copy social media, whatnot, so we can also help amplify that message through our channels. Appreciated.
Sure, Jen, of course. I believe our comms team is putting a social media package together.
Thank you.
Brad Rawson.
Thank you, Chair. I really appreciate this presentation, and I want to acknowledge that Mass DOT Highway Division and Major Projects Group have clearly been learning and building capacity to not only manage complex construction, but to communicate it and to coordinate it over the years. So I want to give a tip of the cap to John and to Marco and the entire team, everybody who's working on these big, tricky issues. One of the things that we have learned through some of the major projects work in and around Somerville, Chair, is the importance of deep upstream notifications. So folks will remember some of the emergency closures for Orange Line MBTA service in and around Somerville, and of course for the Green Line extension. In both cases, we saw really good interagency collaboration between Mass DOT and MBTA. And we had some of those 250 message boards, John, up in the New Hampshire border, literally across the border. And so I really appreciated David's point about how far upstream can you intervene using every communication mechanism possible. I saw Marco's slide that answered a couple of my questions, because we were really proud that in some of our big projects, we worked with DOT and MBTA to make sure, for example, the trucking industry, the Port Authority were really, really plugged in nice and early to try to give professional drivers and long-haul truckers advanced notification, because big rigs obviously take up even more space in those constrained conditions. So it sounds like you're all doing your homework really, really well. Chair, if it's okay, I'd like to ask one specific question, and that's about the longer term. This region and this state, this governor and this legislature are committed to regional rail work, to east-west rail, to rail electrification. And I can't help but look at those amazing bridge diagrams and wonder, is there any scope to kind of co-locate any work and future-proof Amtrak and the Worcester line? We have been able to do that with the Mystic Mafia project that Marco's team is managing right now in Somerville and on the Boston border. So I just want to always encourage all the folks at the MPO to really think about investments and interdisciplinary thinking. When we take a bridge down, if it's over rail, we really should be thinking about whether we've got the clearances, the electrical, the telecom, the positive train control elements that we have already committed to investing in our MBTA and other capital plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Seeing none. Thank you, guys. That was very interesting. It always amazes me how good we are at our jobs. You guys are at your jobs. I shouldn't really include myself. You guys are at your jobs. Thank you so much.
Thanks, David. Thank you, everybody, for the feedback. We appreciate your help.
Next item on our agenda is other member items. Are there any items from the members? Lynn Diggins. Oh,
No,
Lynn,
thank you.
you
Yeah,
want
no,
to make a
I I was trying to put my hand up, so thank you, Mr. Chair. And given your comments at the very beginning, it has changed me what I was going to say, but I'll just add for now that we are in the midst of our town meeting, and my colleague, Chair Diane Mahan started off town meeting, expressing how strongly the Select Board of Arlington, is committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that includes the whole town, and I just want to let you know that, as you and the powers that be, in MassDOT and the state, think about how to respond, to what the feds want and how they want what they want to do. How they want to affect the nature and scope, or the nature and scope of the changes that they are wanting us to make to our policies and practices. That I want to respectfully suggest that either through the members of the board, or directly yourselves, as much as OML will permit, that you reach out to the leaders in the communities, that are part of the Boston Region MPO, and get their input, on how they feel, about what the Trump administration wants us to do. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lynn. Are there any member items? Other than that, seeing none, can I get a motion and a second to adjourn? And please state your name for the record when making the motion. Lynn Diggins.
No one wants to go. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Lynn Rowe.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Any objections? Without objection, we are adjourned. We'll see everybody in 2 weeks.